Last week on July 20th, I was so excited to come back to you all with a renewed sense of productivity. I was on my way getting ready to prepare to go to Jamaica, and I wanted to, talk about standing on business and, remaining firm. And, when the next day came, everything seemed to be going well. I you know, got on a plane, we got off, and I get a text message as soon as my phone was able to receive any type of notifications that Malcolm-Jamal Warner had died at the age of 54. Tragic. Let's talk
We're
about
about
it.
to voice it with friend love one.
Tune in. Welcome to Voice It with Fran Lavoie, and I'm your host, Fran Lavoie. And like I mentioned in the intro, we lost in the Black community and in television history one of the most elegant men around, handsome, powerful yet soft spoken, the leadership exude, everything, just awesome in his public portrayal of stardom. We lost Malcolm-Jamal Warner at the age of 54 on July 20th, 2025. Malcolm is best known for being Theo Huxtable on the hit NBC series The Cosby Show. From there, he would go on to, you know, get nominated for Emmys. He had his own show with Eddie Griffin called Malcolm and Eddie. He had been in film, had guest star appearances in popular TV shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and other television shows, including, being the main protagonist in other shows that, were popular. And I think he was on a show while he was, in Costa Rica, where he succumbed to drowning from a very high rip current that he got caught in while swimming with his friend. His daughter was at shore. A doctor tried to save him, and then there were paramedics that had come and tried to resuscitate him, but to no avail. They said he had no vital signs. This was as of yesterday, and he was pronounced dead on the scene, just a month shy of his 55th birthday. He's survived by his wife and 8-year-old daughter, and it's just truly heartbreaking, particularly for them, and truly heartbreaking for the community. It's still a shock. There are a lot of people that passed away this week, and my heart goes out to them. Some of them I did not enjoy more than others, but nonetheless, death is hard. It's hard for everyone. There are families involved that cared for these people no matter what. And I want to be empathetic to that. Malcolm just hits home for me because he represents a huge piece of my childhood. And very attractive gentleman. My best friend particularly had a huge crush on him. I saw a clip of him, and I'm going to play the whole thing. It's about 8 minutes long, and this was a podcast that premiered 2 months ago on YouTube. It's from the Hot and Bothered with Melyssa Ford podcast. And she was pretty much talking to Malcolm-Jamal Warner about his life and his legacy. And I thought that this clip was very interesting because he speaks on relationships, and he speaks on, how he met his wife, and, how he knew that she was the one. And that's kind of the angle that I want to go in because it spoke volumes to me about the man that he was. And it's hard to even say the man that he was. I want to say the man that he is, but it's the man that he was at this time. So I'm going to play that clip and I'm going to come back with the rest of my commentary.
I wasn't sure if I would ever get married or have kids.
Why?
I think because just growing up, I knew, well, the marriage part, I knew myself well enough to know that I was not going to get married and give a woman half of my shit because I fucked up.
Oh, yeah, facts.
So
Okay,
so I was very clear. I was very clear on who I was.
Right.
And also I spent more of my adult life in long-term relationships than not. And never really felt and so in some relationships I thought, okay, maybe we'll just grow old and happy and healthy together. But it was never the marriage thing. And not just about, me fucking up, but just what marriage means and what parenthood means and being, I know I was never ready to be as selfless as it requires to be a good parent.
So I decided that I'm going to cut in between. We're about a minute in. And I respect this brother. First of all, if you go on to YouTube and see this, he is wearing a shirt that says Black History. And he said, nah, more than a month. And I just loved how unapologetically Black he was. And it really did inspire me. And going to what he's saying, I really do respect the fact that he knew and he was aware enough that he just wasn't ready to be in a relationship. Now, he was in a long-term relationship, like you said, most of his adult life. And because we knew of him when he was about, 14, we saw him, he was with Michelle Thomas. She's best known as Justine on The Cosby Show. And in the 90s, she played Myra Monkhouse on Family Matters, which was a show on ABC. She was the love interest of Steve Urkel. Now, they actually dated from 1988 to 1994, and they broke up, but they remained friends until her untimely passing at the age of 30. She died of stomach cancer. I read somewhere, and this is alleged because I don't have the actual facts to this, but she refused the treatment of the stomach cancer because she was hoping to have children. And she succumbed, unfortunately, to her passing. And, I could tell that was the woman that he really, really loved and really cared for. And they remained friends. And I always respected that. From 1998, I believe, to about 2004 or 2005, he dated Karen Molina White. I believe that's the time frame. And if it's not, I apologize. I tried to look it up. It doesn't necessarily say, but it does say that he was with her for 7.5 years. And more notably, he was with Regina King, who's another beloved child actress. He was with her from 2011 to 2013. Then he got married in 2017, and they had a daughter in 2016 or 17. I'm reading from the Wikipedia page. And he kept their identities private, which I don't blame because, certain things you just want to keep under the radar. So, yeah. I respect the fact that he knew he wasn't ready and he wasn't about to put, you know, anybody through a lifelong journey of, you know, him messing up. And, you know, even though I feel like, you know, him being with somebody for 7.5 years is a really long time to not be 100% sure, it's still his story. And he does speak about that as we go on. So I'm going to continue.
Yeah, yeah. I read somewhere that you'd had like a long-term relationship. It was about 6 years, and you just kind of realized that this just isn't, she's just not the one.
Yeah. And if that's the relationship that's all over the media, that's not how it went down. And neither one of us are happy about that narrative. But also, just as protective as we were about our relationship when we were together, we're just as protective about the break. Like honestly, the story about how we broke up is fucked up and wrong. And doesn't really put either one of us in
the
a
best
positive
light.
light. But also, it's not worth going out to the media and say, "Oh, this is what really happened." Like, it's nobody's business.
Right.
So I'm okay with taking that L, you know, because I know, you know, we know that that's not how it went down, and people who are in our lives know that's not how it went down. So
my next logical question was basically going to be, so if you knew specifically that that was not the one, how did you decide that your wife was the one?
All right. So before we get into that, so right there, he is speaking about Karen Melina White without saying her name. And that's just another example of respect and grace to me. You know, I'm not trying to like, you know, put this guy on a pedestal, but, you know, he could have blasted her and been like, "Oh, you talking about Karen? Yeah, so let me tell you." You know, for me, it's pretty obvious that he's speaking about her, you know. And it is so good to know that, you know, the relationship did not, you know, the way it was portrayed, it didn't go down the way that it did. And I did hear, you know, that he decided that he didn't want to be with Regina King anymore, and that relationship kind of ended abruptly. And I hope that I would hope that the same way that that story was portrayed, it wasn't as bad either, because I didn't necessarily like that when I saw it in the tabloids on how they broke up. I thought that him and Regina King were so cute together. I didn't realize he was with Karen Melina White until after they had broken up. I was like, oh, okay. I know that they were on the show Malcolm and Eddie together. And, you know, I just didn't like that. But I loved the way that he responded and cleared it up. And he was like, it's not worth going to the press to try to be like, well, let me tell y'all wrong. No, he wasn't going to do that. And Karen Melina White got a lot of flack. And we're going to get into that a little bit later. I just want to get through this video. And I really do appreciate, you know, just with the grace that he had, that he took the L, as he said. It's like, all right, people going to talk mess and say that I did this and I did that, but you know what it is. Here's the L. So let's continue with him talking about where he saw that, or how did he know that his wife was the one?
Because, I mean, obviously, then a follow-up question was, do you believe in soulmates and that sort of thing?
Okay, how long is this episode? I'll try to make it as concise as possible. Okay. It's a really dope story. So, after being in a relationship for 6 years, I spent the next 2 years like a man who had been in a relationship for 6 years.
As you should.
I was but to the point where I was like, yo, I gotta slow my roll. And like, I need to just stop and just chill and figure some things out and get clarity. Yeah. So I went on this hiatus. Like, I was cold turkey, was like, you know,
like dating. Celibacy hiatus?
I'm not, well, close to celibacy. Like, not dating, not relationships, Mostly not sex. There were a couple of, but for me, we'll call it celibacy.
I know what you mean. It's okay. Yeah. We'll fill in the blanks.
Yeah. So I was in the space, and
It's so cute because if you watch the clip, he's so bashful and like, yeah, we're gonna call it celibacy. But I was out here. I was doing my thing. Now, as a believer, we believe in no sex before marriage and just honoring the Lord with your body. But we all fall short. And I don't know that Malcolm was a believer in abstinence before marriage. Clearly not. But, that's besides the point. For all my saved folk out there, I'm not covering him because he's a Christian. I'm just covering him because despite his spiritual status, what a wonderful talent we've lost and what a beautiful inspiration nonetheless. I know there's always somebody that is going to over spiritualize things. So that's my disclaimer here. Let's continue. His life is his life, y'all.
I met my wife through a mutual friend, and because I was on this hiatus, I was like, I'm not really dating, and our mutual friend was like, well, one day won't hurt. At the end of the day, she could be a really cool friend or a really cool spiritual connect. And I was like, that's cool, because some of the things I need to work on, I can't work on if I'm completely disengaged from the opposite sex. So, okay, that would be kind of cool.
So I also like what he said here because in my own life, I knew that there were things I needed to work on. And I was just like, you know what? I can't date. I can't talk to anybody. And I think that is beneficial up to a point. But at some point, you do have to break out of your own shell and practice the things that you've been working on by getting to know other people. So shout out to him for the self-awareness and, listening to his friend because it ended up being his wife.
Just to kind of go out, like literally go out on a date, take the woman home and go home by myself. Like this would be a cool, I need this in my life. I need this. Yeah, I need this in my life. And I remember our first date. I was like, you know what? I think I'm cool on. I'm at peace with not having kids. I'm probably not going to have kids because during this period of time, doing all this self-reflection and whatnot, I figured maybe the rest of the next chapter of my life is about something bigger than marriage and family. So I was okay with that. So our first date, I was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to have kids, and she said, I'm definitely having kids. So it was great. We are not on the same page at all. This will not turn into anything. We could actually just be friends. And like that first date was September. Our second date was October. We didn't date again until November. So it was really just
very slow moving.
But it wasn't
and
even,
chill, no expectations.
We weren't even trying to make it move into anything but like a really cool friendship. So I was able to be, I was really honest and frank and candid about everything because I wasn't looking for an angle. I wasn't trying to smash. It was just like, I didn't have concerns about the way she might think about me because we were just, we hanging out. So this is cool. 5.5 months later, and we had never talked about kids since that first date. 5.5 months later, I said, what do you think about starting a family?
What? Why? What was the epiphany 5 months later? What happened?
Because at some point during this time, and because I had been thinking about, I'm going to have a kid, but at some point I was like, if I'm going to have a kid, this is the person that I would want to have it with. And again, it's only been 5 months. But I also realized that if something happened and we weren't together romantically, she would still be the person that I would want to raise
a child with, co-parent with.
Co-parent.
So I'm just glad that he married her. And I'm glad that even though, a lot of men tend to do this. They tend to do this whole, she'd make a great mom, so let's do it. But I would really hope that, and I believe he really saw more than that because they were friends. And that's the beautiful thing. I would recommend to any young woman, be careful with men who just see you as a good mom. You need to be the whole package for that man. And vice versa, fellas, make sure that this woman is not just with you for what you can give her, but she likes you too. So I'm glad that with the work he was doing, he was able to be honest. He was able to be candid with her, and she didn't try to lower her standards. When he said that he did not want to have kids, she was like, well, I'm going to have these kids. And they just remained friends, and leave it to him to make the decision that you're the person that I want to have kids with, that I actually want to spend the rest of my life with. So for me, it shows me that men, when they decide, they know exactly what they want and they go after it. And it's just a reminder that there's really nothing that you can do more than be who you are, with style and grace, ladies. And the right man will come into your life and put a ring on it, want to have a baby with you, do all the things. And they will be committed.
And my parents got divorced. My parents were separated since I was 3. They got divorced when I was 6. My father has been remarried for 47 years, and my mother and father are like brother and sister.
Oh, really?
Like
That's
my
great.
whole life, they've had this close relationship, and they co-parented very well. So I noticed that in my wife. I was like, if I'm going to do it, this is the person to do it with. And literally, it had only been 5.5 months. By this time, we had only had sex maybe 2 or 3 times. So it wasn't the sex thing. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm in love. It was like, this feels right. And this.
So once again, I have to pause. Wow. Right? So he definitely got a lot of his relationship psychology through his healing by looking at his foundation, his parents. His parents separated when he was really young, and they co-parented great, and they're like brother and sister. Though his father remarried and moved on, and I'm not sure about his mom, Pam. I'm not sure, he didn't indicate that. I guess she was probably single, not sure. The fact is that he used the template example that he saw with his parents to influence how he would find his partner and his forever. And it's interesting, I was talking to a close friend of mine who is coming up on 10 years of marriage, and she told me that it was very important for her to find someone who had a upbringing and had a family dynamic that would mesh well with her family dynamic, because it influenced how her now family is functioning. She has a daughter, and the dynamic, while there are differences, there's a lot of similarity in the structure. And he basically psychologically found a structure that mimicked his parental structure, or the structure from his parents, rather. He knew, look, I'm a child of divorced parents. If all else failed, just like my parents did, my dad found a good woman that she procreated me with, and that he procreated to create me with, rather. I'm sorry about that. But because he saw that, he knew that no matter what, they built a friendship first, And this was a solid person that he could trust to be the mother of his child, that no matter what, they would still be friends, the same way that his mom and dad had remained friends. Very, very, very interesting.
Makes sense. So we said, okay, it sounds cool. It's only been 5.5 months. Let's get on birth control and let's keep hanging out to make sure we actually, like each other enough to really do that.
Because like is very important. Sometimes it's more important than love.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
I know. The most successful relationships I have seen, they really like each other.
Yes.
Because like is going to get you through those moments where love is a little where things are shaky. Listen, you're lucky I like you.
Yeah.
So Melyssa Ford is right, At first I thought she said the legacy is more important than the love. But liking a person, and he was responsible, let's get on birth control. And, I want to make sure that we like each other before we embark on this relationship and on this new chapter of becoming parents. And so I think that is very, very responsible of him to do that, to say, you know what, we're going to put precautions there to make sure that we don't have any type of surprises, so that in the event that we decide that we didn't want to be together anymore, you're not, here with a surprise pregnancy. So, making sure that you like a person is extremely important. Before you get married, ladies, and gentlemen, you always want to talk about the ladies, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you like the person first. Make sure that this is someone that you actually can be around, that you actually enjoy, and ask all the hard questions. Like we can talk about marriage in another video, but make sure you enjoy that person. Make sure that person is a rider for you, or you're a rider for them. Make sure you ask all the important questions. You're not going to know everything about the person, but man, at least let's try to make wise choices. That even though things aren't perfect, we know that we have a solid person. So
Never second guessed it. Like there was a moment where I realized, so when people say, when you know, that's what that feeling is. And I had always heard that. And being in long-term relationships for so much of my life, I always felt like, okay, that's a cool concept. But I had that experiential knowledge of when you know. And it's just like, this is it. And we have, I've never second guessed it. We've been together almost 10 years. And we have never had a fight, an argument, a raised voice, or a harsh word said to one another.
In 10 years?
And it's not like we agree on everything.
Right.
She's Black and Puerto Rican, so it's not like she's incapable of the smoke.
She's quite capable of the smoke and spice.
I've
Absolutely.
seen her with her family.
Yes.
Like, the smoke is there, the spice is there, but we're just, I think because we met later in life, we've just always been at a point where we have a way of communicating like adults.
I thought that this was the best clip ever. And in a space in my life where I am really going through a lot of, spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical evolution, particularly when it comes to relationships. Like him, I'd been in some long-term relationships, and I'd unfortunately been in some very difficult relationships. And despite my two-parent household upbringing and, my parents still being together for, over 40 years, we're not created perfect for each person out there. So there are always clashes in personality and not having the tools to really handle those clashes, both on my end and the other person's end, caused a lot of issues. So I really, really related to the title of this clip is Malcolm-Jamal Warner never wanted marriage until he met her. And as a woman, I can say that while marriage to me is a beautiful thing, and I honor the institution of marriage, as something that God wants, I can't say that it was something that I always dreamed of. And while I wanted companionship and I wanted relationship that would lead to marriage, the concept was always hazy to me because I'd seen so many good marriages, but I also seen so many neglectful and difficult marriages and relationships that should never even made it down the aisle. And so for me, I always wanted to make sure that the feeling of when you know was there. And listening to how he got with his wife, and it's not that the other women in his past that we know of, or even the ones that we don't, didn't matter. Even the ones that he had like little, rendezvous with, I'm sure they mattered. But he never felt that I got to do this. I'm going to do it. Men can be very primal. This sounds like a very primal, this is a type of woman that I would want to have my kid with. It makes me wonder if this wife that he had reminded him of his mother, Pam. And, seeing, like we mentioned several minutes ago, seeing how his parents were and are and co-parented, it made me wonder if she has so many traits like his mom that maybe he felt like this is the woman. We don't know. Unfortunately, he passed, so we don't know. But what a beautiful, beautiful clip. I thought that it was just nice to really listen into him. You can watch the whole entire hour long. I'm going to watch it. I see some other clips where he's like, yeah, Theo was corny. I guess he didn't like the Theo Huxtable character, or he thought that he was just simply corny. I don't know. But, I'm definitely going to watch. Now, I wanted to discuss, Karen Melina White and, just the backlash that a lot of people gave Karen for her tribute to Malcolm-Jamal Warner in his untimely passing. And the reason why I want to, talk about it is because I know what it's like to love someone and really care for them, and they pass, and even though you're not with them, even though you both have moved on, you still love them. You still care. You're just not with them anymore. And so she posted a picture of him holding her from behind. Very, it's a nice embrace. It's nothing really crazy. And so she put, "What a profound karmic relationship, my friend. Thank you. Until we meet again." Heart emoji. "Love you always, in all ways. Wink. My deepest condolences to Pam Warner, his wife and daughter." So a lot of people did not like that. They were just like, yo, you are tacky. They were going in on this woman. And, when I spoke to a few homeboys about it, and I spoke with some women about it that cared, and they, Like, my best friend was like, she's just disrespectful. She's rude, you know? And there were other people that said, you can't tell a person how to grieve or how to feel. And I'm in the middle where I feel like it's not that she couldn't respond or say anything. And it's not that she couldn't say or portray this exact or convey this exact message. It's not that she couldn't. I would say it's how you convey it. To insinuate or to say something's a karmic relationship insinuates something super deep. They were together for almost 8 years. They did have a deep relationship. And, you know, the love you always in all ways implies something deeper, sexual, and all fulfilling, that a lot of people might feel like, yeah, not with his wife and kid being able to see that. But I would say she could have said something like, rest in peace, Malcolm. Thank you for all the years that we shared. We had a beautiful relationship and a beautiful bond that evolved into something deeper and greater, such as friendship that would last a lifetime. You know, my heart goes out to your beloved wife, your daughter, and your parents and the rest of your family until we meet again. Like, to me, that sounds a lot better, but she was emotional. It gives, I was still wanting you and still in love with you. But if she was, she was. It is what it is. She just got a lot of backlash. I feel like she probably don't care. So I just think that while I didn't necessarily like her response, I also feel like that was her response and that was her experience. So what can we really say? Regina King also was in a relationship with him, and what she put up was a nice tribute. And so when she put this up, it said, it was with him and his motorcycle. And it said, some people leave a lasting imprint, not just for who they were, but for the energy they carried. I'm sending prayers filled with love and understanding to your family and loved ones. Rest easy, Malcolm-Jamal Warner. So that to me was absolutely beautiful. If you know, their relationship was on display for the world to see. And it was cute. They had a lovely interaction and it seemed very, very nice. And I do remember seeing that they had broken up, and I think, and I'm reading right here, it says he just wasn't feeling it anymore and he ended the relationship abruptly. And he asked King and her son to move out of their shared home. And she was heartbroken by the sudden split. And I know that hurt, and that was reported. So she said that, post the breakup, according to reports from people.com, she said that she and Warner were good and that life happens. She later indicated that Warner broke up with her on Valentine's Day. That Warner broke up with her on Valentine's Day and sent flowers, which she threw away. Ooh. Yeah. Once again, life happens, things happen. And perhaps that's why he went on that hiatus. Because I'm sure, him doing that, I'm sure he didn't want to hurt her but he wasn't feeling it. And he struck me as a man that, you know, you learn from your mistakes, you realize you don't want to do certain things, and you realize that the vibes weren't there, as people say. But if he wasn't feeling it anymore, then this person just wasn't it. And it doesn't mean that he didn't care. He sent her flowers, but I mean, at that point, I'm heartbroken, so I don't want any sweet gestures. Some people can't handle the sweet gestures because it implies more. So I definitely understand. I definitely understand. But she still paid homage to him in a beautiful way. Very simple, very respectful, in my opinion. A much better, classier response. No matter how she felt, she might feel just as deeply as, you know, Karen Melina White did, and or just in her way. But I don't know, I just liked her response better. Now, Tracy Ellis Ross posted something, and people didn't really go in on her as much. Now, Tracy Ellis Ross, who is the daughter of Diana Ross, is a comedic actress, and she was on a show with him called Read Between the Lines. And what she posted to pay tribute to him were these beautiful, very, very, very like nice pictures where, I'm sorry, y'all, this was a fine gentleman. Ooh, my Lord, today. You know, rest in peace to him. He was just so good looking. And so she put, I love you, Malcolm. First I met you as Theo with the rest of the world. Then you were my first TV husband. My heart is so sad. What an actor and friend you were. Warm, gentle, present, kind, thoughtful, deep, funny, elegant. You made the world a brighter place. Sending so much love to your family. I'm so sorry for this unimaginable loss. So as you swipe through, you see the Upscale magazine. They were on the front of the front of the magazine. Beautiful pictures of them. And there's this one picture. It's like, I'm sorry, like these pictures, they did a good job of letting you know we husband and wife, we portraying this on TV. Because I just did, like, the way he's holding on to her, it's very believable. So he said, we have a great rapport, and it's probably one of the best non-physical love affairs that I've ever had. So, you know, that's what he said. And they kind of highlighted that quote. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. I think that I just feel like they were in character. A lot of people feel like these photos are wrong. Like, why she posted that? Why she just couldn't post a regular post, like read between the lines? Like, like why she just could not post a regular picture of them and just, went about her way. They were in character. That's what I will say. They were in character. And I just feel like, I don't even know what to say. It's like, it's too sexy. Like, because he was sexy. Tracee Ellis Ross is sexy. And it's two sexy people together doing, and seeing that his wife and kid might have to see these posts and they're going to circulate for forever because it's the internet. I don't know that she would feel a type of way, but who's to say that she would not look at it as, this was before me, he was a television and film actor, so it is what it is. It's just, excuse me, for her to post that we have a great rapport and it's probably one of the best non-physical love affairs that I've ever had, that's very, like, to me, that was Malcolm pushing the envelope to make you want to watch the show. It's great. It just exuded who he was, like, a person of passion, and he wasn't afraid to express that, which is why I think it made him such a attractive gentleman. Like, it's crazy. Let me not gush over this man. He just passed away. Yeah. So this is heartbreaking that he passed, and I don't. Besides Chadwick Boseman, and there's several other men, I'm not, we have Morris Chestnut. There's several other men out there, but that are like actors that had this kind of regal elegance about them. You're not going to really find that. And it's hard. We did not have much of that representation in Black Hollywood and in Hollywood in general, and it was just beautiful to have him and, the likes of like Chadwick Boseman, and just having these men be so ever wonderful, not just in their talent, but just in what they stood for and who they were, just grace us. And to see them go is just such a tough thing. I did like this clip of the relationships because it really had my wheels turning, and it made me feel like, wow, somebody that, it's nice to know that I'm not alone in how I've managed relationships. And I guess when I know, I will know, and my husband will know too. So my future husband, God willing. But I shared my thoughts, as the clip was going by, and I want to know what your thoughts were. Drop down in the comments and let me know what you think. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Fran Lavoie. Thank you so much for listening to this video and watching it. Now, if you like this one, there's plenty others where that came from. Be sure to check out my channel, like, comment, share, and subscribe.